Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Black Book Show. I'm the host, Makonnen Sankofa. As well as being the host of the Black Book Show, I'm also authors of the book, How to Market and Sell Your Book, A Guide for Beginners, The Rise of Rastafari, Resistance, Redemption, Repatriation, and Life in Gambia, the Smiling Coast of Africa. Now, in case you are new to the Black Book Show, if you haven't been onto a Black Book Show before, this is a platform where a variety of authors of African heritage come on and they talk about their books. So it has been running for 3 years now, and I'm happy to say that this is actually, it started in May 2020. So this is actually, this month marks the third year of the Black Book Show. This is actually the 3rd year anniversary edition. So I hope all you authors that are on the show are privileged for being on the show. I was going to say this evening, but actually it depends on your time zone. Where I'm at the moment, I'm in England at the moment, so it is evening here. But if you're in USA, it's in afternoon. Some people it's early, late morning. So it actually depends where you are. But whatever time zone you are, welcome to the Black Book Show. The format is there's a variety of authors that come on the platform and talk about their books. Most authors get 15 minutes to talk about their books. However, there are some authors that talk for 10 minutes as well for a bit of a shorter duration. But the majority of authors, it's a 15-minute slot or 10-minute slot. There will be authors speaking from a variety of different genres as well. So, some people have got children's books, some people have written, history, culture. I've had people previously on shows, talk about breast cancer. The person last month talked about prostate cancer, motivation, health, various different genres. And also there's authors from various parts of the world. So we have, for example, the last Black Book Show last month, there are some authors, in Ghana. I was in Ghana last month. We had an author that was in Jamaica, USA, UK. I think we had an author in Nigeria. So we do have authors, in different parts of the world. So it is an international platform with authors, in different locations and different places. What I would just like to say now is that everyone should also be on mute unless you're speaking, so that we don't hear any noise in the background. So just house grown rules. So if you could just please mute yourself if you're not speaking. More people will be joining us throughout the evening as well. Right, I just want to begin things now with and ask the first author to come on. So the first author to come on is Denise James. If you would just start by saying where you're based, a very brief introduction about yourself, and then you've got 15 minutes to talk and tell us all about the 2 books that you've written. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one other thing I'm just going to say before you start, you've unmuted yourself. I mentioned earlier, you don't have to have your camera on unless you're speaking. It's up to you if you want to have it on the background, but you don't have to unless you're speaking. Now, from an author's perspective, if, for example, you see that you can see a picture of my logo when you're speaking, the Black Book Show logo, we can still see you talking, but sometimes I've just noticed it might not always show, like the video may be of me, but my logo will be on the background. So, but we will still be able to see you clearly. Everyone will still be able to see what you're doing. If we can't, you will certainly be notified. Okay, Denise, I'm handing it over to you now.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Denise. I live in England, London, Hackney, amongst many other things. I am a mother of 2 sons and grandmother of 5. Okay, so that's my brief introduction. Okay, so here I go. I'm just going to get on with it. All right, so who am I? Like I said, amongst other things, I am also a psychotherapist, author, mentor, inspiration life coach, and supervisor. Okay, so just to say a little bit about how I became some of these things. At 18 years old, I made a decision. It was a decision to become a mother. At the time, it felt like my life was going nowhere fast. And the idea of being a mother felt really attractive. And I really felt it would give me some sense of meaning, purpose, focus, and direction in my life then. And when I had my son, I promised him that this will be the best of starts for him. My start wasn't very good, and it would be a new start for myself. Okay, that decision took me on a journey. Sadly, by the time my son was 3 years old, the happy families I was trying to create fell apart. It was very devastating to myself. I also experienced what was then called a nervous breakdown. Yeah, where I couldn't sleep. My thinking became all crazy. I had an eating disorder at the time that got way out of hand. You know, I just felt like I was losing my mind, and I got real scared because I didn't bring my son into the world to then lose his mother. So I went to the doctors. I was told like it was a nervous breakdown. I had depression. I later go on to redefine that as a spiritual breakthrough. That happened at that time. It was for a good reason that I didn't know then. When I went to the doctors, I was offered medication, but for me, that didn't feel like the answer. Not too long after that, I came upon an article in a magazine that was talking about a therapy group for women with eating disorders. I signed up for that and got on it. And it was during that experience, you know, that the eating disorder I had was bulimia, and bulimia or all eating disorders is hard to crack. It comes under mental ill health. But during that time in therapy, having that space to talk, having people hear me on all the different levels, realizing that some of the experience I went through was far than normal and was indeed traumatic, hence why I had an eating disorder, amongst other things. You know, all that became very clear to me. And it was during that time that I made another decision that I wanted to do this, because that gave me so much freedom. And within a couple of months, I wasn't even, you know, being bulimic anymore. So I made a decision, and that decision changed the course of my life. And then I went on the road to becoming a therapist. So I just want to say, decisions determines destiny, for better and for worse. All right, I just want to read a quote because it speaks on how my life journey, my healing, what my healing was about, and as a therapist, how I work with others to get them to that place of self-healing. And I think this quote sums up the work. It's a quote on the subject of authenticity, and it says, "Authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen." And that's by Brené Brown. When you've been through trauma, it knocks you out of shape. You know, you then have to take on another persona to survive. You've gone into survivor mode. So the person that you were and could have been gets arrested, get left in the past, you know, as you go into the business of surviving. So that's what my book, Back to Love, is about. It's about, you know, my healing journey, psychological, spiritual, and racial, and about my decision to become a therapist, you know, and the experience I went through to do that. What else? And yeah, it's about basically, you know, becoming my true self and showing up as I am. Okay, so I'm just going to read the back of the book so you get a feel of Back to Love, which I wrote in 2005, but it wasn't published until 2021. So it says, Back to Love. Back to Love is an autobiography that tells the story of a teenager's decision to have a child and the direction that decision swiftly takes her, a journey of emotional healing and self-rediscovery. The text reads like a detective story, an inner world detective story, as she begins to uncover and take more seriously the past experiences that had truly shaped her. Back to Love is therefore a triumph over adversity story, a simple yet extraordinary and deeply felt life story that pays homage and testimony to how past wrongs could be righted and how basic human and children rights and dreams can be recovered and made in this time possible. The main plot of the story rests on the young woman's decision to have a child, which also amounts to a decision for change and all that came to consequently entail. The decision to change, as well as its processes, also tells its own story. And it tells that story, especially, I talk a lot about the different therapies I went through as part of my healing, both individual and group therapy. Okay, so that's Back to Love. And just to end, Back to Love with a quote from Frederick Douglass. It says, "It is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men." I absolutely agree with that. Yes, it's easier to build strong children, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. But it's not possible to repair broken men. My Back to Love and my life journey is a testimony to that. Okay, my second book, this one, Inner Life Rights, a manifesto for reconnecting to love, renewing your mind and radiating your light. This book was released April last month. Okay, so I think the following quote sums up the basic theme running through this book. So I'll share this quote now. I love quotes. It's an ancient African proverb, and it says, "Whatever happens to the individual happens to the whole group. Whatever happens to the whole group happens to the individual." So how did this book come into being? So a friend of mine's read Back to Love, and she said when she read it, she enjoyed it. Not that it's, you can call it an enjoyable book because it's a healing story, but there's joy in it. She said after she read it, knowing me more from this time, she was looking for something more, and that kind of planted a seed in my mind, and it made me to decide that I was going to make, my books and call them Back to Love series. So this is a Back to Love series, book 2. Because like I said, I wrote and finished Back to Love in 2005 when I was 40. I'm 58 now, so a big time delay between the two books. So Inner Life Rights brings you up to speed where I am on my journey. I see life very much as a journey, and in my healing and in my work. So the theme running through Inner Life Rights is on the theme of the personal and the collective. Another major theme in the book is the ancient idea of us going within to know thyself, which is and was considered the greatest education and knowledge of all. We've really lost ourselves in the world today. Fake has become real, and real has become something that people feel, ashamed of and have to come to therapy to learn to be. Okay, on the theme of the personal and collective, I speak very much to the individual, and where changes can be made there. And I speak very much on the subject of the Black community and where changes and healing can happen there. And very much I speak to us as a race, the human race. So though a lot of, the writing is coming from my experience, and I'm a Black African woman. it's also for everybody who's really interested in making a difference in this crazy world at this crazy time. And also it's a book that helps us to move from survival. We're not just here to survive, we're here to thrive, you know. So these are also some of the themes in the book. So very much a book about self and societal transformation. So it's far from a light reading. And you can open it at any place and read from it. You don't have to read it chronologically. And any bit you read from any area of the book, you know, I believe will be enlightening and enwisening. It's a collection of essays, which I call hersays, of poems, and of, you know, heartfelt and deeply thought through reflections, especially from what I've learned being on this journey since Back to Love, and from the decision I made to have a child. It's very much about learning from experience, because experience is our greatest teacher. Dare we learn from it, take the time to learn from it. You know, and when we don't learn, history repeats, you know, whether it's personal in our life or historical as a Black people or as a human race. History repeats, you know. History as a subject is something that we have to look to learn from, not look to glorify bad behavior. And as a Jamaican saying goes, when we don't learn, you know, who don't hear must feel. Okay, just a quote, another quote.
Hey Denise, I'm just letting you know you got 2 minutes left.
Oh wow, okay, from Malcolm, when he says, you know, this is the time we're at. We must learn to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. So I'm going to just read the back then of Inner Life Right, so you can get a feel of it. So it says, psychotherapist and inspirational life coach Denise James presents a compassionate, clear-speaking, visionary text as a call from the future to make changes now to ensure a sustainable future for humanity. This book shines a much-needed light on this world's current dark night of the soul, and its inner light guides us to new life-affirming behaviors and mindsets. The author addresses the human condition from the root up and encourages new ways of being, seeing, living, and loving that would lead to true and lasting change. The overarching message of Inner Life Rights is that we can all make a difference, and that unprecedented doesn't have to mean bad, only that it is time for a new paradigm shift to a more humane and just world. It's that time. Okay, so because I don't have a lot left, I'll have to go now straight to where you can buy my book. All right, and where you can find a bit more about my work. So my website is called innersideout.net. You can find more about me there, about my work, about my books, and my books. I've got excerpts of my books on my website, so you can get a taste of the book. Also, I do a blog on the website. You'll get all the links for my blog, for my YouTube channel, my Linktree, my Instagram. Where you can buy my books, it's Amazon Foils, Waterstones, Afori Books, the Black Book Collective, and all book selling outlets worldwide. You can also Google me and Denise James, and more information and as well as those will come up about me. And if you buy my books, please review so that we can get more traffic coming through, so the books can get in the hands of those who really need it, and especially those who, you know, don't have much confidence in therapy. They're great self-help therapeutic tools. That's the reason why I'm writing and kind of branching out in that area.
Okay, thank you very much, Denise. I also had the pleasure of interviewing Denise recently as well on the Black Book Show podcast. This is the Black Book Show virtual book tour. It's also the Black Book Radio Show and the Black Book Show podcast. Well, the radio show and the podcast is kind of linked together because the interviews that the authors that interview on the radio show also go onto the podcast. So Denise's appearance on the Black Book Radio shows and podcasts will be coming out very soon. If you go on the website www.blackbookshows, there's actually a section where you can listen back to some of the previous podcasts. And if you join the Facebook group, the Black Book Shows on Facebook, you can also, when the radio shows are coming up, you'll be notified. You'll know when they're coming up if you follow the Facebook group. Right. Thank you very much, Denise. It's a pleasure having you on the Black Book Show. I'm now going to go on to our next author. The next author is Bharti Dhir, and Bharti, as well as being an author, she is also a sponsor of the Black Book Show. Bharti, along with Jimmy Asher Foundation, Education for All Now, Tamra Foley, Tolu A, Akinyemi, the Roaring Lion of Newcastle, Sister Lejet from Nubian Nigist Books, Gyrons from Polyglot Translation Services. They are the sponsors of the Black Book Show. So Bharti, if you would like to come on and tell us all about your book Worth.
Okay, thank you very much, Makonnen. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm highly honoured. I think to be a sponsor is also a very honourable thing to do because it's a very good cause. So I hope more people will consider sponsoring because this is a brilliant show. This is a brilliant cause. Jimmy Asher Foundation is a brilliant cause. So I think hopefully Makonnen will talk a bit more about the Jimmy Asher Foundation if he has time later on. But it is good. And it's always, after hearing Denise, I thought, gosh, I have a hard act to follow. But that was really good, Denise. I just want to start by just showing you my book. It's called Worth. So very much about my journey in finding my worth. And I thought I'd just start with a series of affirmations where I celebrate my worth. So I put, every time I raise my voice against an injustice meted out to me or someone else, I water the seeds of my worth. Worth is holding a mirror to myself and not comparing myself to others. It's accepting and celebrating who I am. My worth says that every negative experience is a flame. When I refuse to give it air, it is extinguished and has no power over me. And I'm at the point now where I appreciate my life more because of my sense of worth and the person it has taught me to be. So what is Worth about? It's the cover depicts me walking. Well, it's not me walking, but it's just somebody walking. And it's my story of my memoir of my journey, basically. So I'll start by saying, who I am. So my name is Bharti Dhir, and I was adopted by a Punjabi Sikh family who then just before they adopted me, found out that I was a dual heritage child of African Asian descent. I was found abandoned on a roadside in Kabale in Uganda. And although I live in England now, my early years up to the age of 12 very much formed my impression of the world and the community I was adopted in, and the African community as well as the Asian community. So Worth is essentially about my journey, making sense of the sort of messages I was getting around me. So it started off, and so the themes that my memoir covers are issues around colorism, where my adoptive parents were told, why are you adopting her? She's so dark. Nobody's going to want to marry her. Around illegitimacy, where my parents were told, you can't, she's going to bring what her birth mother did. She's going to bring that into your family and dishonor your family. Because there was very much a a belief that if you were illegitimate, you would do the same as your birth mother. The sins of the parents would go, that's, that phrase, the sins of the parents, the children emulate those sins later on when they grow up. So there was that issue. There was also the issue of racism. People were questioning why my parents would want to adopt a African child as they saw it. And then there was sexism, where my parents were told, if you want to adopt a boy. Why are you adopting a girl? Because girls are a burden. In the Indian community, they're a burden. They not only can bring dishonor on a family, but also they're seen as a burden when it comes to marriage, because of the cost involved, So my parents had to navigate that, and I had to sort of try and make sense of all of that, and also make sense of the fact that I was adopted. My parents didn't tell me I was adopted. People in the community tried to tell me that this wasn't my real family. But when you're a child, you don't really understand. And I used to have loads of fights in school because obviously I thought I was part of the family. My father used to say, Bharti looks like me. I had no reason to disbelieve him. Children don't really see color unless it's brought forcefully into their lives, the whole prejudice around color. And so it was when I was 8, I found out that I was adopted, and that was an accidental finding out, which you can read about in my memoir. So essentially, my memoir is about experiences that bring up your sense of worth and experiences that bring your sense of worth down. Just making sense of the messages of prejudice around, both from the Asian community and the African community, and how I fought to get to a position where I found my sense of worth, and I found that I was worthy and I was a valuable human being in my own right. So it took me many years, I'll be honest. Took me many years to actually start believing in myself and start accepting myself and start accepting that I was beautiful in my own right. Because for many years, I compared myself to the Western and Eastern ideas of beauty and found myself wanting. So I found that I had lost myself in a sea of lack of self-worth. But I hope that if you pick up this book, you will see that it doesn't matter how negative the experiences are that you go through in your life, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will find yourself and you will find your sense of worth. Because if I can do it, anybody can. And, it's not an easy journey, but it is possible. And so if there's anybody being bullied or having very negative experiences, I would recommend my memoir to them. Not just to say, oh, compare what I went through. It's not about comparison. Everybody's life journey is their own, and everybody has their own level of trauma. So you can't compare. But what you can say is that you will get through it. So I really hope you'll pick up my memoir. So it's a quick introduction. I just want to say that if you want to buy Worth, it's available on Amazon. In the UK, it's available in Waterstones, and you can ask for it in other bookstores as well. In the USA, I believe it's available in Barnes & Noble. I think that's the name of the bookstore over there. And I do hope you will support the book. And like Denise said earlier, do please leave reviews, and do please recommend the books to people. Because it's how we get known as authors, and it's how our stories are spread. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Okay, thank you very much. So that was Bharti Dhir, her book called Worth. Denise, I see she's put her links to where her book's available and her YouTube link in the Zoom chat. I just want to remind all authors, if I don't mention it at the end, please put your links in the Zoom chat in case people want to purchase your books, or in case if you want to give out your email or even contact number, contact or Instagram, whatever, feel free to do that if you want to share that so people can reach out to you directly. I also see a message addressed to you, Bharti, by Blaque Diamond. It says, Bharti, I would like to have you as a guest on my podcast, Basic Black After Dark. I would also like to purchase your book. Please provide the link. So there you go. Please put your link in the chat, and also you feel free to communicate with Blaque Diamond directly. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bharti has been on a previous episode as well of the Black Books radio show and podcast, and Blaque Diamond will be, well, Blaque Diamond just featured on my radio show on Monday and Saturday. She's one of the authors that will be speaking later on the Black Book Show virtual book tour as well this evening or today, depending on what time zone you are based in. Right. Thank you, Bharti. I'm now going to go on to the next author. Our next author is Dr. Calenthia Miller. Please, if you would just start by saying where you're based, give a brief introduction about yourself, and then go on to tell us all about, you know, the books you've written and also your publishing company.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dr. Calenthia Miller. I am located in Durham, North Carolina. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, but was brought this way when my son decided he wanted to attend school in North Carolina. First off, I wanted to thank the Black Book Show for allowing me, as well as the other authors, to have this platform to be able to share our stories. So a little bit about myself. Like I said, I'm originally from Chicago, but now based here in Durham, North Carolina. I am a mother of 2 adult sons and 1 granddaughter. I've been in healthcare for the last 34 years. I currently work for a non-for-profit organization in healthcare. I'm currently working in an outpatient pediatric ambulatory site. So as far as the books are concerned, I'll take you back. As everybody said, we all have journeys, and I had a journey and a story to tell. So back in January of last year, January, I actually had a stroke at work. I always told people, people in healthcare are the worst patients. We don't typically listen to what our bodies are saying, but happened to be at work that day and was just having a good time with my coworkers and wasn't feeling well, and ultimately ended up in neuro ICU with a stroke. During that time, don't remember much of that time. All I do remember is that my world was different from what it was before. And in that journey, in that time, I went through recovery for about 6 months, but about 4 weeks afterwards, I fell into this really depressive state where I just felt like, why am I here? What's my purpose? And I remember saying to the Most High God, you know, tell me what my journey is supposed to be after this. And he clearly said to me, what do you like to do? And I said, I like to write. And that's where the journey of writing came back, because I actually started writing when I was about 9 or 10 years old. But life happens when you become an adult, you become a parent. And so those things go on the back burner. So my first book that I wrote is called Unmasked, which is this one. I wrote this book in about 4 weeks. And then my second book, which is Unmasked, Uncovering the Truth, I wrote that in 6 weeks. The basis of the books are really just talking about the importance of family during whatever your trials and tribulations is. Mine happened to be the stroke. Realizing that sometimes we carry ourselves and have these different masks, and we have to realize that we can't do everything. And so I had to really get down deep within myself and understand that, as my children tell me, I am OCD. I'm always wanting to be in control of everything. But as women, we take on so many roles, and I had to learn how to manage up. And manage up means that I had to give away some things, but not giving it away to where I felt comfortable knowing that my care was going to be okay. And that was with my boys. And so that in itself, being able to allow them to do everything from bathing me to doing everything, that for me was a humbling experience. I say that to tell people on this podcast tonight, please take care of yourself. When your body tells you that it's time to slow down, slow down. Don't allow it to slow you down. So within that time frame from January to mid-June, like I said, I went through recovery and ultimately went back to work. In that time process, I met up with one of my good friends from high school, and she is an actual author herself. And we were talking about me writing the book. And she mentioned to me who her publisher was. And I, in return, inboxed her. And that's how these books were actually published, through She Publishing. Through that time period, we became really close friends. And through that journey, I decided to open up a publishing company. I said to myself, God, if you allow me to get through this journey, this platform that you allow me to create will be not just for me, but for other people. So I actually opened up Allure Publishing in January 21st, which I contribute that to be my rebirth, is when I had my stroke. So that made my year. And so that's the day that I actually released Unmasked, Uncovering the Truth. I released that book that day, as well as opening up the publishing company. So I think for me, the journey that all authors have, we have a story to tell, but also giving back, as I think a lot of the last two authors have said, being able to give back is so important. So Allure is one of those companies that I want to give back to other authors who have stories to tell. I also, just not with the publishing company, I also have a podcast that I co-host with my sister, which is Shanitha Finesse, which is called Confessions of a Publisher. That is done every third Wednesday of the month. That was born out of the different conversations that we've had with potential authors and how their journeys of being either self-publishers have gone through a publishing companies, and their different journeys that they had gone through. And we wanted to give a different narrative to what publishing companies are about, like Allure as well as She Publishing. Our companies are a little bit different. We want our authors to feel like they're families, because they are our family. We're with them from the beginning to the end. Also, too, I have a merchandise company that sponsors and puts out all the merchandise for Unmasked, which is actually going to be a 7-series book, which is Canvas of Thoughts. Just a lot of things that are going on. Just I would love to invite other authors to be able to come on Confessions of a Publishers too, and I'll be putting that information in the chat before long. So that's not a whole lot to talk about me. I'm just grateful to be a part of this platform, to tell my story, to let people know that even though I didn't choose to be a publisher, you know, that journey was chosen for me. And so I'm grateful for that as well too. I wanted to just also mention too, I'm actually getting ready to release my third book of Unmasked, which should be out in the stores by August of this year. I heard one of the authors mention about affirmations, and I'm going to be writing affirmation book as well too, in between publishing my published authors as well as publishing my own book. But one of the things that got me through my journey, or through my stroke, was I would write these little affirmations for myself. And one of them was, courage is built during the midst of the storms that we have weathered. And I will tell you, going through a stroke is something that you weather, but you go through it. And I always tell people, even though I didn't choose to have a stroke, I needed it. I needed to realize I had to sit down and sit in some things and think about some things that required me to go back to my childhood to understand where I was and where I wanted to be. So again, Allure is that platform that I want to give to other people, so that they can know that they have courage, they have the ability to share their stories with other people, and that story can ultimately save somebody's life. So I'm hoping that each person that talks tonight, somebody gets something out of their story that can potentially save themselves from whatever they're going through. So that's about me. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's Dr. Calenthia Miller. So I'm just looking at some of the comments in the chat. So someone just said there isn't enough time to write the book down, take a photo. So can you just hold the book up again and just tell the name of the two books and where they can be purchased from? I know you're going to put the links down, but just hold them up as well for in case anyone wants to take a photo.
Sure.
And just mention where they can get those books available from again.
Sure. This is Unmasked. That's the first book of the series. The second one is Unmasked, Uncovering the Truth. And both books can be bought through Barnes & Noble in the United States, Amazon, Walmart, Target, also on my webpage as well, which is Allure Publishing LLC.com. She Publishing LLC.com as well too. I'll put all that in the links as well. So all these books can be purchased at those different platforms.
Okay, thank you very much. That is Dr. Calenthia Miller. I'm just actually going to share my screen now. So hopefully you should all be seeing my screen. Can someone just give me a yes or thumbs up if they can see my screen? Okay, I can see. So this is the Black Book Show Facebook group. So as I mentioned, please join the Black Book Show Facebook group if you haven't already. This is the best place to be up to date with latest information. So that the authors I've been speaking on the show, I published, just to advertise when they're going to be speaking on the book. So this is Calenthia Miller and her book, Unmasked, which she was just speaking about as one of her books. And also it's got other authors links as well. When my radio shows, this is Bonnie, she's going to be coming on speaking about her book, Your Daughter, Your Advocate, later. So please join the Black Book Show Facebook group. Also for my radio shows and my podcast, like my last radio show was on yesterday, the 27th of May. Author Blaque Diamond, she's an author that's going to be speaking on the show. She was on my radio show as well yesterday. So many of the authors that have been on my radio show, stroke podcast, have also been on the virtual book tour. Like Calenthia Miller, and we're going to go, if you go onto the website, which is www.blackbookshows.com, again, www.blackbookshows.com, there's a section where you can actually put in, you can write podcast here, which got podcast interviews. There's various different sections, but if you click on podcast interviews, then it will take you on where you can access the podcast. Calenthia Miller is actually one that I uploaded here. But you can also search the other podcasts by clicking on this button, click this link to listen to other podcasts. But I'll just go on to this one, Calenthia Miller, because she's the author that just spoke. If you can click on it right here, you can then listen back to the podcast, the interview that I had with her. And also you can, browse her for the other interviews that you'd want to listen through, other authors like Denise James. She'll be coming on the podcast later on, and other authors as well, some that have been on the virtual book tour previously and some that will be about to go on. And some people have just gone on the podcast, themselves, but that's where you can listen to some of the interviews that I've done with authors on demand to get a bit more in-depth, a one-to-one where I've gone on, but to speak about authors, about their books, and also, they do publishing services as well. Right, if you're an author and you're interested in featuring on the Black Book Show to promote your book, feel free to reach out to me as well. If you go onto the website, there's actually a section which is a contact us, and you just put your name, your email address, and a message, say something that I'm interested in featuring on the Black Book Show. I will then get back in touch with you. Alternatively, you can send an email to me, and the email address is info@blackbookshows.com. That is info@blackbookshows.com. Or you can WhatsApp me. I'm just going to give you a second to get your pen or your phone out. If you WhatsApp me, the number is +44 7943 178 117. That is +44 7943 178 117. And the name is Makonnen. That is MAKONNEN. MAKONNEN. Or indeed, if you would like to sponsor the Black Book Show or just leave general feedback about the show, feel free to reach out to me in any of those ways. Right, now let me go on to the next author for the Black Book Show, the virtual book tour. The next author is Anjie Enabor. So Anjie, welcome to the Black Book Show for the first time. Please, if you would like to start by just, staying where you're based, a brief introduction about yourself, and then tell us all about, the books you've written.
Thank you, Makonnen, and good evening, everybody. It's been so inspiring to hear just amazing women, and I like the fact that people tell their journey, because like the last couple of people said, for a lot of us, our work now is birthed out of personal journey. So that's really been so inspiring. So my name is Anjie Enabor. I work as a chartered accountant by day. I'm an FCCA, and I write books in my spare time. And my journey to this point actually started from, I don't know, curiosity, I would say. So I recall pretty much at uni. I mean, I'll go back actually and say that growing up, I grew up in a single parent household, and I just thought it was normal, because this is how I was raised, that when you would get money, if you got £10, my mum would usually break it down into smaller notes or coins, and you just did not spend everything. You would have a pot that you would keep money for church. You would have a pot that you would give to a homeless person or whatever, and then you would have a pot that you would spend on sweets or whatever you want. It's just how I grew up, you know. And when it was time for holidays, she would normally tell us, you know, we're going whatever place in the summer, the flights are this amount, I'm getting paid this day. And she would just say, you know, when the flights were booked, and then, okay, now the flights have been done, now we need to save some money up for your pocket money. And if you were good, then she would usually say to you, okay, now your pocket money is complete. And if you were not, you know, whatever. That's just how I grew up. So fast forward to being in school, especially being in university, and seeing things like student credit cards being offered, or, you know, insane amount of trainers or clothes that people were buying. It just wasn't normal for me. I just wasn't raised that way. And whenever I would get money or work a summer job, it didn't come to my mind to just spend everything I had, because that's how I grew up. I didn't know any different. And before long, a lot of my friends started to think that I was rich and I had a lot of money saved and I could afford whatever I could, because I planned for it, because that's how I grew up. So anyway, that really sparked. I've also always been really interested in psychology and just kind of behavior and how people think generally. And so that really just sparked and created a journey for me about kind of upbringing, what kind of ages children develop, how much nurture and nature impacts how we grow up as adults. Obviously, I work in finance, so how people's financial habits are formed and what sorts of things influence it. Like I say, I had a lot of friends growing up who, even till now, who just kind of default to Anjie, I'm trying to buy a house. What do I do? Anjie, I'm like, I don't know. I just know how to research things and plan for things. That is just how I grew up. If you were going somewhere, we would, I remember one trip actually when we were young, going to Egypt. And it was, we're going here, we're gonna see, you know, the pyramids and whatever. We would research it. How much were the tickets? You know, do you have enough? It's just how I grew up. Anyway. So that led me to starting to realize, actually, from before that first book, I started to research a little bit about early psychology and early developmental psychology in children, and realizing that actually from the ages of 0 to 5, a child's cognitive abilities, their ability to view the world and how they would eventually manage their monies or their finances are already formed by the age of 5 years old. And so I thought, what can I do to, I guess, give back and share what for me is just normal. And so that was how the first book, How Zaki Bought His Bicycle, was birthed. And this book talks about a young Black boy, very important to me that all of my lead characters are dark-skinned. Forget the fact that this color isn't probably what a Black person looks like, but I'm getting there. You know, and it's really important because representation matters. And I think it is really needed, especially in this country. So this book follows a young boy walking with his mum on the high street and seeing a bicycle that he really likes, and just says to his mum, "Oh, can I get it now?" As children do, and as you know, totally fine. But then proceeds to say to his mum, "Why don't you just put it on your card? You always put things on your card." And so that then started a conversation with his mum about debit and credit cards, how those work, what sort of things we put on a card, and the cycle of how you get money from a bank, which is on a card, and you have to pay it back. And it's very, very interesting story, if I say so myself. But anyway, in the end, when Zaki learned about money and how the banks work, I really love this picture with his mum kind of depicting the cycle of money, how they work on cards, and how you have to pay it back to the banks. And so once he realized what was actually going on, he then started to really think, oh my goodness, where am I going to get the money to buy my bicycle? And so he came up with ideas of things that he could do to earn some pocket money. And I know not everyone's a fan of paying children for chores, but it is for learning purposes and hopefully would be age appropriate for everyone's family. And so Zaki came up with some chores that he could do, and eventually he got his bike. He actually paid for his own bike. At the end of this book, I've then got a blank page that's like a budget template, a really mini budget template for children, so that they can start to budget for their own things that they want. The idea of these books is to start to introduce financial literacy to children at a young age. So it is not making children greedy or overly concerned about money or anything like this. It's just to bring to their mind how money works in this world, in the Western world, and the sorts of habits that you can start to develop from a really young age to be literate. It doesn't mean you be great with money, but at least you know when you get yourself in trouble, and hopefully how to get out of it. What I did not realize, and I think this is where I need to look into, I think it's Dr. Miller's publishing company. I was lost. I did this all on my own and published it on Amazon, but I didn't quite realize that this was very wordy for most 8-year-olds. And so the second book, based on feedback that I got, and this is done really, really well, is to perhaps make something for younger children that just started to get them interested in some of this terminology. And so the second book, Zaki's A to Z Finance Words, was born. And this book is for younger children, probably up to the age of 5 years old. So it's a coloring book, and it starts with, I think it's really interesting. I'm quite nerdy, so I think this is so fun. So it's A is for assets. You have things like P for profit, Y for yield, C for capital. So this goes through A to Z Finance Words, and it's a coloring book. So on the one page, it is colored just with an image, no words. And on the second page, it's got the blank kind of sketch for the children to color in. And my hope with this particular book is just to introduce just real life words. I mean, I love this character, T for tax. And so they can color it in and just really start to familiarize themselves with the words. So apart from the books, I also run money management workshops for children from ages 4 to 18. And usually we talk about things like budgets and savings and investment, and the difference between being rich versus being wealthy. What do those two things mean? Whether they should go to university, how do they fund university, crypto, YouTube, you know, do you work a 9-to-5 job, and how do you plan for your future, in the hope that this will just become normal. Money management, financial literacy as a life skill, rather than something that you need to be an accountant to know or to teach. I also do speaking engagements, and usually, again, I really like to emphasize, I teach literacy, to be familiar, to be armed with the skills that you need to live a good quality life. I'm not an investment coach, I'm not a budgeting coach, I am an FCCA, but I'm not trying to, you know, make entrepreneurs for children, nothing like that, but for them to be literate. And I was really inspired by the other speakers ways that they give back. And I think this is so important. I'm so glad that I'm in the company of really like-minded people. For me, the organization that I support through Zaki's Money's Adventures, they're called Transforming Lives for Good, TLG. They're a UK-based charity organization that work towards rehabilitating children who have been expelled or kicked out of school, of primary school, actually, in most times, who come from troubled homes and who have been kicked out of the education system. They usually would do this by creating smaller classes, either in community centres or in churches, and work with children to either send them back to school or to teach them in the TLG classes and then go off to at least get a qualification. And really, really love the work that they do. And hopefully the more that we do, the more that we can give to them. So my 2 books currently, I have written 5. I haven't published the other 3 yet because I struggle with illustrators and doing all the typesetting and all the hard work to do with it. So Dr. Miller, I'm coming for lots of questions and hopefully support. But currently these books are on Amazon, Amazon.co.uk, actually on all of the Amazon outlets, they're on there. I also run an Instagram page that I post on fairly regularly, and we do a lot of, I do something called Monday Money Affirmations that you can also say as a family, and all of the work that I do is very targeted really at the children, but also things that you can imbibe and incorporate as a whole family. I will put my email and my contact details in the chat if you wanted to get in touch after this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was Anjie Enabor. There is actually someone who's put details about the children's books courses, please. So yes, they'll probably want to reach out with you to go into more details about the children's book courses. Unless, I mean, this is anything you want to briefly add now about them. Otherwise, you can put your details in the chat.
Sure, really briefly, they usually run every summer from June to September, and you can either sign up for 2-week courses or 4-week courses. They are online, so you can join from any part of the world and you can choose what time suits you. I also have a range of topics that parents can choose from if they know what they want their children to learn or be literate in. Otherwise, I will do an assessment and I would recommend whatever topics they could choose. They're very, very, very affordable. And yeah, most of the children really love it.
Okay, great. So Anjie, she'll put all the details about the books and the courses, etc., and her email address in the chat. So in case anyone wants to reach out to her about her courses or her books, they can contact her and also go on the link if they want to purchase a copy of either of the books or both. Thank you very much, Anjie, for joining us on the Black Book Show virtual book tour. I did actually interview Anjie recently as well, so her interview will be coming out on the Black Books, the radio shows, and also on the Black Book Show podcast very shortly as well, where you'll be able to listen to me interview Anjie and go in a bit more depth in certain things. Right, let me introduce the next author now. The next author is also a publisher. I believe it's 19 books now he's written. I always lose count. He's written so many books. Tolu A, Akinyemi, The Roaring Lion of Newcastle, is a sponsor, a proud sponsor of the Black Book Show, I must say. I'd like to welcome Tolu back onto the Black Book Show again. Tolu, I don't know whether you're going to concentrate more on your books or your publishing. I'll leave it up to you. But Tolu, a warm welcome again back onto the Black Book Show. And Tolu, please start by introducing yourself, well, telling us where you're based. I've kind of given it away in the title in case anyone's clicked onto it, but also tell us where you're based, a brief introduction about you, and then, you know, tell us about your books. And if you want to talk about your publishing or other services, you can do that as well.
Good evening, Makonnen. Good evening, everyone as well.
Good evening.
It's a great pleasure to be here this evening. My name is Tolu A. Akinyemi, known as Toludo, the Lion of Newcastle. I am based in Newcastle upon Tyne, United Kingdom. I'm a multiple award-winning author who writes in the genre of poetry, short stories, children's literature, and essays. So far, I have published 20 books. And yeah, so apart from apart from writing as well, I am the publisher at the Roache Lion Newcastle as well. Also, I curate an art organization down here in Newcastle known as Lion and Lilac. And also, I'm the founder of the Newcastle Review as well. I'm a great advocate and believer in storytelling because it's very important that we tell our stories, because I think what happens when we don't tell these stories is that with time, if you don't tell your stories, in the future it gets distorted. When someone else tells that story on your behalf, what we get will not be the accurate reflection of, of what really happened. I remember sometimes, I think it was last year thereabouts, I was at Time Out Market and someone who had bought my collection of coronavirus poems walked up to me to say, "Oh, Tolu, thank you for writing this book, because this is history at its best." And I think that's one of the fundamentals of telling our stories as well, because you can never ever go wrong with telling our story. So I think that's very, very important and pivotal as well. Tonight I'll be reading from my collection of poems. Just read a couple of poems from this collection. It's titled "Dead Cats Don't Meow, Don't Waste a Nightlife." And it's a collection of inspirational poetry. And 3-book series. The first in the series is titled "Dead Lions Don't Roar." So that is the first in the series of inspirational poetry. And the second one is titled "Dead Dogs Don't Bark and They Don't Bite," while the final one is titled "Dead Cats Don't Meow, Don't Waste the Nightlife." Well, to be fair, what is life without inspiration? We all need some form of inspiration to get going. Life might be a turbulent place, but inspiration sits at the center of everything we do in life. And this is what I've done with this series, which I call the series of poetic wisdom for the discerning. I'll read 2 poems from this collection. And the first one is titled "Rich in Cash, Poor in People." People are the currency you need to navigate through the rough edges that life might throw your way. You might be rich in cash and your bank balance fat. Being poor in people means you are living on the cliff edge, on the tender oaks. When we pass through the tunnel or become lost in the dark alleyway, these are riddles money can't solve. Or our aeroplane is hit mid-air by severe turbulence. That our hearts find a home in our mouths. People will come through in the air, the hostess conversing about survival strategies that might sound like a beginner learning a foreign language. You can't survive without a nucleus. There are days when money can't save you from those pitfalls, and the emptiness of life stares us in the eye like a motionless snail. That is when we need our bank to be filled with people, humans with blood flowing through their veins. Not your bundle of Naira notes, your pounds, no dollars will wipe your slate clean. Thank you. And the final poem I will be reading is titled "Humanity." And this poem, I recently read this poem at an event not too long ago. And when I read it, it really touched my heart. And I feel like I have to read this tonight. And this is titled "Humanity." I still believe in humanity, the good in humans, the humane touch, the support systems, the ones that give us a shoulder to lean on, the nameless doctors on the night shift rota, the ambulance drivers that use their dexterity to navigate through the testing rush hour traffic, the anonymous blood donors, let's call them lifesavers, the organ donors who have died selflessly. Humanity is not a purpose of the dough stacked up in your bank account. Humanity is the art of giving and letting go. I still believe in humanity, the caregivers who do their all to ensure that we get the best care, Humanity has taught me that love is more important than money. The leaders who give shelter to the victims of war, opening their borders to give them a new lease of life. That's humanity. The whole essence of our journey is giving, sharing, and loving. When I lose all hope, I won't lose hope in humanity. Thank you very much. And I will share details about my books in the chat as well. Thank you, Makonnen, for having me, and thanks to everyone who has presented and those who will be presenting shortly after. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tolu, well, I'm just going to ask you, for the people that are listening via Black Culture Radio, if you could just repeat, well, just say where they can get your books available, because I know you're going to get in the chat, but just could always are listening, where they can contact you or get a copy of your books, etc.
Yeah, so my books are available on all Amazon marketplaces. You can also get them on other online stores like Barnes & Noble, Waterstones. They are also on my own website, toludo.com. That's TOLUDO.com. Also on my publisher's website, the Roaring Lion Newcastle.com, and everywhere else where books are sold. And you can also find me on my website at toludo.com and toluakinyemi.com as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's Tolu A. Akinyemi, the Roaring Lion of Newcastle. You're going to give us a roar for you got to give us a roar.
Roar!
Okay, thank you very much, Tolu. Tolu, as I said, one of the sponsors of the Black Book Show, and I've got an interview with Tolu that will be coming out on the Black Book, the radio shows and podcast very soon as well. So yeah, make sure you join the Facebook group so you're kept up to date when that will be. The next author on the Black Book Show is Larry Ukali Johnson Red. Larry Ukali, I'm welcoming back onto the Black Book Show, the virtual book tour, for his second appearance. He came on the Black Book Show previously. I believe it was last year he has made his first appearance, but welcome back onto the Black Book Show, Larry. Larry, you there with us?
Yes, how you doing? It's good to speak with you and be on this platform again.
It's great to have you back. Larry, what I want you to do is I just want you to start by just telling the audience where you're based, a very brief introduction about yourself, because mindful you've got 15 minutes. And I know how when we, you can talk a lot, Larry. So remember, just, brief introduction about yourself, and then go on to tell us about, the books, whether you want to concentrate on, the new book, or you want to concentrate on the book we spoke previously, or both of them. It's up to you. So I'll leave it with you. Okay.
My name again is Larry Ukali Johnson Red, and I was born and raised in San Francisco. A lot of my experience in the city. I've since moved out of the city because of the gentrification. I'm about 50 miles inland in Antioch, California. So I have spent a majority of my life advocating for and participating in educational initiatives and struggles of my people. In other words, I'm a prolific writer and a powerful communicator, and I have written 8 books, including The Black Expatriate in Africa. That was my original version of when I started writing books, but I soon found out in America in '81 when I came back and through '83, no one at all knew what an expatriate was. So I, redid my book again by 2002, and I called it Journey to the Motherland from San Francisco to Benin City. And again, it's based on my 4-year journey to Nigeria when I was there as a teacher in the Egosa Grammar School on New Lagos Road in Benin City. And of course, being from San Francisco, it was quite a journey. It was quite a book, and it was also quite an experience writing about my life in Nigeria. However, upon coming back to the US, I wrote a book called History to Destiny Through Afrocentric Poetry. And that book is definitely a book full of the challenges that we as African Americans faced then and continue to face now as they continue to shoot us down in the streets in America. Finally, I wrote a book called Loving Black Women. And Loving Black Women is, of course, essays and spoken word. And I do still praise my sister, and I praise this show for being among the many beautiful sisters who have written books and the brother. So definitely want to recognize everybody on the program. Again, I wrote another book called Loving Black Women, and that was essays of spoken word. And then in 2008, I wrote another book called Long Distance Love, out of about a relationship I had with a Nigerian sister. And she turned out to be a 419, if you know what that means. And so I think long distance love is something you can really get yourself wrapped up in and also hurt. But I had to write about it just to keep everything on the chain, keep everything straight. Finally, I wrote another book in 2010 called American Challenges in the Obama Era, about the Obama presidency. And that was part one, about the first term. And then I wrote another that released in 2016 called American Challenges in the Obama Era, part two. And finally, I have written this book, just introducing, called Letter to My Young Brothers and Their Parents. And it's based on how young Black boys can achieve success in school, and how important it is for the rest of their lives that the brothers do step up and graduate and move on. So this is just a brief introduction. Hello? Okay, so
oh no, Larry, I didn't realize that you're finished like that so quickly.
Well, no, I was just to introduce myself.
Oh,
So,
okay. Oh, that's a bit of a long introduction. It's 4 minutes.
Yeah, and
Okay.
4 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
You've got 11 minutes
And
left now.
And then I'm working on books currently. One with you, of course, Brother Arthur, and that one is about the different people of Africa who have traveled back to Africa, and their responses, which is definitely something that every African in the world needs to know about, so they can know how they'll be treated when they get home, because the way that they treat us when we get home is very beautiful, and it's given so many great experiences to African American writers as well as African Americans who just travel there. And finally, after that anthology, I'm gonna be working on a book of poetry on Africa and America again. So future is there. Future is to come.
Okay, Larry, is there anything else you wanted to add, or
Yes,
was you live
yes.
in there?
I would like to definitely talk about the book Letter to My Young Brothers, because in America we suffer racism, but also there's a big challenge for African American students, because you have the prison railroad to prison pipeline that if most African Americans who don't graduate, they face jail. And also they face very hard times. So the thing is, the reason I wrote this book, Letter to My Young Brothers, is because I've been a teacher since I left Africa and I came back. I worked 10 years or so in nonprofits, 13 years as a matter of fact. And I built a community center called the OMI Pilgrim Community Center, which still exists in San Francisco under a new name called IT Bookman Community Center. But I worked with Mr. Bookman when I first got back from Africa, and I placed about 4,000 or 5,000 students on jobs. So I was definitely instrumental. And also when Mr. Bookman wanted to build a community center, I wrote all the grant letters, which added up to 1.5 million. I wrote all the grant letters, and Mr. Bookman, he passed about a week after my late wife passed. So we were very close, and so I worked with Bookman. But then after the community center, after about 5 years of operating community center and all of the factionalism that we had to deal with in that neighborhood, the neighborhood I grew up in called Lakeview, or Ingleside, then I went back into teaching. And in seeing all of the Black boys having challenges from the teachers, and some of the teachers and administrators. And I've been, in school in Aptus where Dean used to punch brothers, So I've had a very good experience in education, but I survived it and I graduated. And I thank God I graduated, because then I was able to go on to college and graduate from USF and every other university in San Francisco. But the book Letter to My Brothers is based on sound education and good advice. And I had the late author, and his name was
Okay, Larry, can you hear me? Because it's breaking up. Like we basically we can't quite hear you clearly, and it's breaking up. So I'm not sure what device have you logged into. Have you logged in on your desktop or your mobile?
I'm on my phone, my cell phone.
Okay. What I want to do is I want to go on to someone else. Could you possibly try logging maybe on your desktop, just because the connection, it was fine to begin with, but the last, like, say 2 minutes it's been kind of like breaking back and forth. But I will come back to you to kind of finish off, but I just, because we can't hear you, it's kind of pointless you continuing. You've still got about 5 minutes left, so I'll come back to you for like another 5 minutes at the end, at some point.
Okay.
So
you said you want me to be signed up on my, on the laptop?
yes, you can try and see if you get a better connection on your laptop. I will come back to you for another 5 minutes, but I just want to move it on because I know people are having difficulty seeing and hearing you. So yeah, I will come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. All right, now I'm going to go on to the next author. The next author is Bonnie Mans Roache. So Bonnie, if you would like to come on and start off by telling us where you're based and then tell us about, the book that you've written.
Okay. Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So first of all, I'm just so happy to be on this platform today with all of these authors. And so thank you to Makonnen and the sponsors for continuing to provide this platform to allow me to share my story and my journey that I do believe God allowed me to experience to share with others. My name is Bonnie Mans Roache, and I'm coming to you today from a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. And the book that I'm going to talk about is called Your Daughter, Your Advocate. I'll try to hold it here. A daughter's account of caring for her mother against Lewy body dementia in a flawed care system. So other than that, I'm a technology project manager for over 30 years, and I'm also a certified travel agent, a business that I started about 17 years ago. And in the midst of doing all of that, I was a daughter first, and I became a caregiver. So that's my journey. And also, I have some slides. Is it okay if I share those?
Yeah, let me just enable you to do the screen share. Hold on.
Okay.
You should be able to do it now.
See if I can share. Okay. All right, is everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. So a summary of my book. So while caring for my mother, I just found myself constantly at odds with different care facilities, whether it was memory care, nursing homes, hospitals, wherever she was. And I realized that it was because these were corporate facilities that were driven by, whose decisions were based on profit, liability, risk, and their limited resources. In the book, I chronicle my journey advocating for my mother, whose name was Mary Alice. They called her sister. And just all the disappointments of what I call a flawed caregiving system. And I share this story to promote awareness and understanding, as well as to illustrate some simple positive care approaches to provide a safe environment for my mother, and to share that with others who may be going through a similar journey with dementia. I will mention now at this point that I didn't consider myself an author. I didn't plan to become an author, but after this journey, I met so many people, and so many people reached out to me, and I always, well, most of the time I knew what to say to them. And I realized that I'd experienced something that could help a lot of people. And so I started to write it down to share with people. And just from there, I decided, well, maybe I can publish it. So I kind of call myself an accidental author, but I probably shouldn't say that. So that's kind of how I arrived at, where I am. So a little bit about Lewy body dementia, because I realize a lot of people have not heard of it. So based on the research that I did while I was caring for my mother, per the Mayo Clinic, Lewy body dementia is the second most common type of progressive dementia after Alzheimer's, which most people have heard of Alzheimer's. It affects 1.4 million Americans, but it's probably more because the disease is often misdiagnosed. Okay. So what it is with Lewy body dementia, there are protein deposits called Lewy bodies that develop in the nerve cells and regions of the brain involved in thinking, memory, and movement. The cause of Lewy body is not known, it's not curable, and it's also associated with Parkinson's disease. So a key point here is that Lewy body is often thrown into the same bucket as Alzheimer's. And based on my journey, I learned that the treatments are different. That was really what we learned along the way. The treatments for the two are different. So it's important that it's not lumped in the same bucket so that you can get the right treatment and the safe treatment. Okay. All right. So one of the challenges is getting the diagnosis. So my mother, Mary Jackson, the first diagnosis when she started to show symptoms was called cognitive impairment normal for her age. I've talked to so many people who've gotten that same diagnosis. Lewy body is often misdiagnosed as Alzheimer's. The diagnosis is challenging because with Lewy body, the symptoms don't present themselves in any particular order. It varies. And usually there is no memory loss. People look for memory loss to say that it's any type of dementia, but usually there isn't. And my mother really didn't have a lot of memory loss at first. During my research, there was a man, Don Kent, who was misdiagnosed by 6 different neurologists before he was finally diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. So it is very imperative, first of all, to get a diagnosis and then to make sure you get the right diagnosis. In the book, I talk about a lot of the behaviors of Lewy body dementia, the behaviors that my mother exhibited, like anger, paranoia, obsessive behaviors. I talk a lot about those. But the point I want to share is even myself, we tend to a lot of times say when people get older, they just get ornery, or, grandma's just mean, or whatever the situation. But I knew that my mother's behavior wasn't indicative of her personality. It was significant. It wasn't just her getting old. So I always say to people is that, you know your loved one, their personality, when something is really not normal for their age. So if you're seeing those type symptoms, then press for a diagnosis that would explain it. And this is just a journal that I kept when mom was really acting different. And I would, take it to the doctor. And I said, in this journal, I'm concerned that she's been diagnosed, hasn't been diagnosed with anything except just being 76. That's all you all told me, that she's 76. But I really don't believe that that is the explanation of what looks like some type of significant degradation of brain function and behavior changes. So I continue to push for, you know, an explanation of what was going on. Another challenge in dementia, Lewy body dementia especially, is the care and treatment. There are limited facilities that focus on dementia care in general, but definitely Lewy body dementia. In the area that we were in, there was actually just one real care facility that focused on dementia. So you can imagine the wait list for that must have been. It's cost prohibitive, very, very expensive. And then what was very disappointing in my journey is that the facility started to deny her applications because of her diagnosis. When they would see Lewy body dementia, they didn't understand it. A lot of people just don't understand it. And so rather than understand it, they just don't want to deal with it. So she became labeled. And these are things, I say a lot of things in the book that's from my personal experience. So I'll say I'm not a professional, I'm not a dementia specialist, but I had an experience. So everything is real to me. And these are things that I actually heard, is that that's that bad dementia. They're dangerous, or they can hurt you. And that was very hurtful to me, that my mom was being labeled that way and being denied the facilities that could possibly care for her. So one of the things that I want to do is to educate instead of just saying we don't understand it, to educate people on the disease, be aware of it, but understand it, to dispel these stigmas. Now, I note here that I'm not saying that Lewy body dementia does not have some behaviors that can be dangerous, and the person's behavior could possibly hurt you. That is absolutely true. But I do believe that proper training and understanding of the disease and separating the person from the disease. It's the disease that's bad. It's the disease that's dangerous, not the person. So I do believe with that understanding, that education and that training, that it can really help the situation in providing care. Okay, so another challenge is just dealing with the care systems. I came up with this saying during my journey: it's care for the person, fight the disease, and making decisions from that perspective. Because I believe when care decisions are made from that perspective, different decisions can be made. It might cost more, it may require more effort. My objective in the journey was, I realized it was to care for my mother and provide quality of care, quality of life for her with this disease that I knew, you know, was terminal. But I did believe that she still had a quality of life that she could enjoy, and I can enjoy with her. I wanted to keep her safe and maintain her dignity. But as I started to deal with these facilities, I realized that I was dealing not with care facilities, that I was dealing with corporate structures whose objectives were not consistent with mine as a caregiver, and that their decisions were made based on profit, liability, risk, and their limited resource issues. So are there alternatives? Yes, I do believe with training, learning intervention techniques, and trying those techniques before sedation and medication. One model that I experienced that I found out about was the Teepa Snow model, called Positive Approach to Care, which gives so many different techniques for dealing with people and the behaviors of dementia. And so I do believe fight the disease and care for the person. And then there's the medication challenge. I really, really share this with people, especially if their loved one has Lewy body dementia. As I said earlier, it's very important to understand that all dementias are not the same, because all the treatments are not the same. Okay. First generational antipsychotic medications such as Haldol, and there are a list of others. I list them in my book based on research. They should not be used to treat Lewy body dementia. It can cause severe confusion, severe Parkinson's, sedation, and sometimes even death. There are other antipsychotics that work effectively. I use those on my mom. I'm not against medications, but I am very aware that all medications, antipsychotics that they give to dementia patients, even in the trained medical facilities, can be detrimental in the situation with Lewy body dementia. So there's a story I want to share with you, and I kind of share these pictures of my mom because this was a picture of her in a memory care facility, the first one, that I took her to. And finally I realized, wow, she fits in there. And she did. She was hanging out. She was with people like her. So as I told you, corporate decisions are made based on profit liability and their risk. And what happened, well, about a little over 30 days that she was there, is that she started to show dementia behaviors. Well, that would make sense, right? She has dementia, everyone else here has dementia. But instead of dealing with it with those positive approaches, they sent her out to a psychiatric unit for an assessment. And my mom and I spent 3 days in a psychiatric unit in a hospital because I was working, doing my job right beside her, wherever she was. So we were there trying to get the psychiatric assessment so she could go back to where it was her home. But what I didn't realize at the time is that they were trying to get a doctor's order to allow them to medicate her or basically sedate her. I did not realize that that was their real motive until much later. As a result of that decision, she was given antipsychotic medications in a duration of about 10 days. And within 10 days, she was taken to the ER because they could not wake her one morning. And she went into cardiac arrest. So basically, they gave her those first generation antipsychotics. I did not know at the time. And what I learned is that the people in these facilities don't know either. So they made a decision that caused her harm. And it cost me probably over $4,000 because that's what I paid them as her rent for the facility. And they chose to send her out. So this started the downward spiral really of her health. But
Bonnie, you've just got a minute left. I'm just letting you know, just wrap it
oh,
up.
wow, that went fast. All right, let me go fast. So she recovered from that. And then she had this ambulance ride from the hospital that sent her back to the ER again in a distressed state. So all these things were happening. So in this book, among all the challenges, what I want people to understand is that my mom was still there, and that by employing these positive techniques, I was still able to enjoy her even after we had those bad experiences. And I do believe that everyone involved in the care system should be aware of dementia in different ways to deal with them and to help care for them. So this is a picture of the front of my book. And if you read the book, these stories will make you smile, they'll make you laugh, angry, they'll make you cry, but they'll make you better prepared. And you'll relate to them and you'll realize, first of all, that you're not alone. So I also want to give a quote from Rosalind Carter, who is the wife of President Jimmy Carter in the United States, that this book is for you because there are only 4 types of people in this world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. So I want to say that even though I talk about a flawed care system, that we met some really caring and good people in our journey. So I really appreciate the people who work in the field, and I am very thankful to them. So my book is available on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle, Barnes and Noble. And also I have access through my travel group page as well to access the book. So I'm out of time, and that's what I want to share with you all today. Thank you so much.
And for those who are listening on Black Culture Radio, the title of the book is called Your Daughter, Your Advocate, by Bonnie Mans Roache. Okay, thank you very much, Bonnie. So I'm now going to go on to our next speaker on the Black Book Show this evening. The next speaker is Blaque Diamond. So Blaque Diamond, if you would just like to come on, start with introducing, saying where you're based, then give a brief introduction about yourself, and tell us, all about the book you've written. I know you've written several books, so you can either concentrate on the different books you've written, or if you want to concentrate on one particular book, it's up to you.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say, Bonnie, that's an eye-opener, your story. My mom is 98, and she was just diagnosed with dementia just recently, less than 3 months ago. So I'm preparing myself for just about everything at this point in time, but my heart goes out to you. I am Blaque Diamond. I am in the USA here. I am currently in Maryland. I'm originally from New York City. I am parenting 12 children, 6 boys and 6 girls. 3 are my biological children, and the rest are my nieces and nephews through foster care, through adoption, custody and guardianship, and kinship care as well. I am also an international parent coach. I do coaching with individuals who are seeking to be parents, who are interested in becoming a foster parent or adoptive, or just want to know a little bit more about parenting. I'm the host of Basic Black After Dark. It airs the first and third Fridays of the month, and it's at 8 p.m. So I am respectful of other people's time. So our time difference, I do work around that as well. I am a social worker as well. I know some people say, well, were you ever in foster care? What made you go into the journey of becoming a foster parent of so many children? I worked with children and families for over 40 years. And the children that I have are between the ages of 11 and 47. Well, those 47, of course, those are the ones that are grown right now. I started my journey doing this book, the Stacey F. series of children's books, from birth through foster care through adoption. And this is the first in the series of, you probably can't even see it because of the lights. I'm so sorry, I apologize for that. This is the first in the series of the books, Stacey F. And then we have the second in the series of the book, A Temporary Home for Stacey. The third in the series of the book is Stacey F., My Forever Mommy. And then we have a coloring and activity book for children to use. And I usually tell social workers it's best for them to get the activity book because that helps them engage with the child. When children go into foster care, when they're being removed from home, you won't be able to speak with them because they're surprised, they're shocked, they're hurt, and they're crying, and they don't trust you, so they don't want to talk to you. So we figured that this coloring activity book will let them know about a little girl named Stacey who was in foster care. And I spoke about Stacey because Stacey's a real little girl. Stacey is my little girl now. She was 3 years old when she came to me. Again, she was my niece. And Stacey is now 15 years old. It's just been a journey with me, with Stacey and her siblings. The book that I'm talking about today is called 1380 Prospect Avenue. In this book, I'm going to read the excerpt, I'm going to read the back of it. After the murder of their parents and younger sister, Silk, Satin, and Suede Lee are the first taken in by their cruel aunt and uncle, then shipped off to Concourse Village, a state-owned facility for boys. Thrust into survival mode, the boys must decide a path for their lives with only the morals instilled by their deceased parents and the street knowledge they are quickly gaining. Their bond is constantly tested as they transition from boys to men. The Lee brothers make friends and enemies with the boys of Concourse Village and the girls of Marsania Manor, as they all try desperately to find steady footing in their way of life. Separately, they have experienced unspeakable tragedies, but together they learn what it means to be a family. 1380 Prospect Avenue is not another Bronx tale, but a remarkable tale of lifelong connections forged by the tough love of the streets. I wrote that book. It is based in New York and it's based in the Bronx. And I used that number 1380 Prospect Avenue because that's the address that my siblings and my cousins grew up in. They would always come and they would tell us about the stories of living in the Bronx and the things they did and how life was back in their time. They're a little older than me. So I didn't know what they were talking about, but those stories meant so much to me just to hear how life was back at that time. So I just took that story and I made it my own. I said, I wanted to be there. I wanted to experience that. So because I worked in the social work field and I seen teenagers in and out of foster homes and how they maneuver throughout the streets, I decided to develop something of my own. I said, well, I know what some of these foster children go through. I see what happens to them. But with this particular book, you hear and you learn about the different systems that fail these children. A lot of people don't want to talk about the systems. They're so busy talking about how the parents are failing these children. But in here, you have the educational system that fail these children. You'll have some departments of social services, and you'll also have the group homes that they're living in. And I'm going to give you a little bit more about this book. In this particular book, the group home using these boys and some of the girls as mules to transport drugs. And this is something that we see every day, or something that I know is happening every day. So I wanted to put this type of story into this book because these teenagers, most of them know that they're not going to be adopted. They're going to age out at 18, maybe 21 years of age and never have that foundation of a family. Some of them come into care because their families have abused and neglected. Some of them come into care because the parents are incarcerated. Some come into care because the parents are deceased or on some type of substances. And that's the way some of them come in. Some of these children even come into care as newborns, and they continue to journey through foster care up until maybe age 18 to 21. I advocate for these children, and I've been advocating for these children for over 40 years because I think that all children deserve a loving, safe, and stable environment. And I know that there are people out there that can provide this to them. The thing that I see that's more of a problem is that individuals are looking for babies. They're looking for smaller children, younger children, children that's under the age of 10. These teenagers need a home. They can't go back to their home. Sometimes it's inevitable that they even go back home, but they still need that guidance. When I speak to people here in the US about these children that are out on the street, I say to them, would you rather have that same teenager that could be in somebody's house where you're assisting them and advocating for them and mentoring for them? Would you rather have them in your home, taking care of them and giving them that guidance? Or would you rather for them to be banging on your car door, breaking in your windows, breaking in your car, or breaking into your home? I understand that it's tough to bring in somebody you don't know, but you have to understand it's tough for these children to be taken from their homes for something that they didn't do. And they got to get up in the morning and wake up to somebody they don't know. I wanted to understand these children a little bit more, so I did a challenge, and it was called the Trash Bag Challenge. A lot of these children, when they're removed from their home, they have to be removed with whatever they have, whatever clothes they have on their back, and they just grab the clothes and they throw them in a bag. And a lot of times it's a trash bag that they're grabbing because these kids don't come from homes. Some of them don't come from homes where they have luggage and suitcases and duffel bags. They don't have those things. So they come from these homes and they just grab the bags, they put those things in there, and they move from home to home. One day they may be in a home for 2 days, the next day they could be in there for a week. And sometimes these children run away. They come into the agency and they tell their stories, and we hear what's happening to them. We see them on the streets. So I decided to do the Trash Bag Challenge. Now I know I'm quite older than these children, but I still wanted to know how it felt with how people would take to me. So I started the first week with getting a garbage pail, like in the office. I got a garbage pail and I took my pocketbook and I dumped everything in it. And I just walked around. So the first week, it didn't seem like much, maybe to people. They just probably thought that I was just dumping trash all the time. The second week, I got a bigger bag, and everything that I carried from the first week, I added it to whatever I was carrying from the second week. So it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And by the end of the month, I had one of those big construction bags with garbage, and I was dragging it through the office, dragging it in and out of my car. Now, the only thing that was a little different was I had a car, and these children are traveling in public. They're on a bus, they're on a train, they're walking the streets with these bags, and they can't tote that heavy bag, so they have to take what they feel is important. So they grab those bags and they move around with it. So I took my bag, and that particular day I had to work. And I went into a government building with that bag with a coworker. The coworker walked on through. We were in court. She walked through. She showed her ID, and they did not check her bag. It was my turn to walk through. I showed my ID, but they stopped. And I just looked. I said, I have my ID. She has her ID. They stopped me, I guess because my bag was bigger. I'm not sure, maybe it was the way that I was dressed, because I wasn't going to dress professional that day. So I wanted to dress down a little bit. Never mind, I had my ID. They stopped me and they looked in my bag, and I asked, why are you looking in my bag? They said, well, everybody's bags that come through, we have to look. I said, but you didn't look at her bag. So I said, what is the difference? And you looking in her bag or you looking in my bag? Both of us work for the state. We both have ID. She has a bag and I have a bag. He said that those are her personal belongings in that bag and she's a state worker. I said, well, these are my personal belongings and I'm a state worker. I said, the only thing that's different in her bag and my bag is that she's carrying a Gucci and I'm carrying a Glad. I didn't want to make too much of it while I was in court because, of course, I didn't want to be arrested, nor did I want to lose my job. So I went through and I let him look through my bag. By the end of the day, we were done with court, and I went back over to the gentleman who had stopped me, the security guard there, and I told him what I was doing. And I told him there was no disrespect. I just need to get a little bit more insight on what it was like, I guess at my age, being homeless, or either at my age, being somebody who didn't have a place to go. When you don't have a place to go, you are considered homeless. So at the end of that conversation, he thanked me for giving him insight as far as what I was doing. I said, this is what I'm doing it for. And it's for so many children who are looking for loving homes for them to go into. And a lot of these children are teenage children. Many of these children are our pregnant and parenting teens, which make it a little bit harder when you have a teen by themselves, but now they're bringing a baby with them. So I know that some people still don't want to take the chance. I'm not going to take on a problem. These teens are set in their ways. But what I want you to do is to understand you were a teen as well. What was it in your life that turned you around to make the difference in the decisions that you was going to make as a teen? Now, I'm going to say myself, there were some things that I did as a teen. And when I look back at it now, I'm like, oh, boy, I'm so glad that I didn't do this. I'm glad I didn't go in that direction. But I had family that was able to help me and support me. These teens don't. If you can save the life of a child or turn their life around just a little bit, it will make all the difference in the world. These children right now, these teenagers, people are looking in the Department of Social Services. If they don't get their help, support, mentorship, they're going to be involved with another system, and that's going to be the juvenile justice system that they're going to be involved in. I guarantee you, if you were to open your home, even mentor them, get involved with the Department of Social Services. If you know a friend who would like to do that, get them in the right direction. Tell them that it's okay. They'll give you the training. They'll give you the support. Some people look at it and they say, oh, is that bad? I don't want to do it. They're going to get into my business. Well, you have somebody else's child in your home. So they want to get into your business, but not the business that you think is the business for this child, just to make sure this child is safe, to make sure that you have all the tools that you need to continue to provide for this child while the family works on what they need to work, and so the child can go back and return home to their family. Because reunification is always the first mode of relationship that they want these children to return to. So that's my story. I am Blaque Diamond. That is my real name. I know I get it all the time. People say it couldn't be. It's spelled B-L-A-Q-U-E. I'm going to post this here of how you can reach me. I have a website where you can go on and see the trailer for 1380 Prospect Avenue. I hope you do go see it. Maybe that'll give you some insight, or you can pass it along to maybe somebody you know who's thinking about being a foster parent or adoptive parent. You can always be a respite parent as well. You can contact your local Department of Social Services. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm not being paid or anything by my department. They have no idea that I even do this on my own. I don't get paid for doing this. But you know what? I am going to take that back. I do get paid for doing this. My fee is these children going into the right home and someday returning back to their home. Thank you. And that's my story.
Thank you very much. That was a Blaque Diamond. She was actually on my Black Box radio show yesterday, where I did an interview, and that podcast will be coming out very shortly. In fact, I think all the authors that we've been on so far have either been on my podcast radio show or will be about to come onto it. Right, let me go on to now Jyrens. He's from Polyglot Translation Services. We've partnered up the Black Book shows with Polyglot Translation Services to offer service to translate your books if you're author and you're interested in getting your book translated. I think it's 35 languages that they cover, European languages as well as African languages. But Jyrens is going to be the best person to speak to you about it. So Jyrens, please welcome onto the Black Book Show and tell us all about Polyglot Translation Services, and how you can help authors get their books translated into other languages.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Makonnen, and thank you all the authors that have appeared on the event, that are in the event for the moment. And thanks a lot. I think Blaque Diamond, I could easily relate to the story about foster care. Personally, my father abandoned me, and it was by God's grace that I was taken care of by a family, a Christian family, that took care of me and that raised me. So it's a story I can relate to, understand as well. And thank you for bringing that knowledge to everyone. Basically, we at PTS, we believe that authors have interesting stories, interesting ideas to share throughout the world. The only problem that usually occurs is there's a language barrier. You've written a book in English, like what Blaque Diamond has written, but those who speak French cannot get of your knowledge, cannot understand your wisdom and all the results of finding you've actually come up with. So we help authors have their books in different languages so that everyone will be able to read their books and will be able to get the knowledge they've actually acquired. That's basically what we do. At the moment, we have a partnership with the Black Book Show to help authors on the show have their books in different languages, French, Spanish, and so on. We've translated a couple of books already from authors that appeared on the show. I wanted just to show the screen. Is that possible? Share the screen.
Yeah, you should be able to share the screen.
These are books by Doreen Robinson, Grandad and me. We've been able to translate it into French and Spanish, and the books are selling in Germany, in Spain, and so on. We have, does it share on the tab? We are currently working. Can you still see my screen? Mike, can you just confirm?
Yes, yes.
Human GPS, God's Perfect Script by Janet Palmer that we are currently translating into Spanish. And we have books by Chris Pittard. We are currently translating in Spanish as well from Olympiad Publishing. So if the authors are interested in translating their books into other languages, they can reach out to us. We've actually sent a couple of emails and we'll start with the process. I think that's all for me. If there's any question, you can just ask questions and then we can answer the questions later.
Okay, thank you very much, Jairon. So yeah, you did mention at the end, I'm just going to stop sharing that he sent out, well, I sent out some emails to those on my mailing list on behalf of, together, basically on behalf of the Black Book Shows and PTS, Polyglot Translation Services. But if you are interested in getting your book translated, you can contact Jairon. Jairon will put his details in the Zoom chat. Or if you contact the Black Book Shows, info@blackbookshows.com, info@blackbookshows.com. I'll put my details in there as well. I can then put you onto Jairon, who will be happy to provide a quote. It may be good just to even have a conversation with him to find out a bit more about what he does in terms of, it can give you a quote for one and the different languages, because obviously everyone's different. Some people might want a language translated in, Spanish. Some person might want it translated in Wolof. People are different in terms of what they want that particular book translated. I think I've had inquiries about Polish. You do translation in Polish, don't you, Jairons? I've had translations about Holland, yes. Different countries. So Jairons will obviously be able to explain a lot more than me. But if you have received those emails, if you'd like to join the Black Book Show mailing list as well, please contact me. I can add you to the mailing list. info@blackbookshows.com. But the emails I sent out regarding Polyglot Translation Services, that was basically Jairon's. He's the founder of Polyglot Translation and the CEO of it. So that's basically his company is the organization that would be doing the translation of your books, and they cover translation in several different languages. So before I go on to the next author, is there anything else, Jairon, you just wanted to add before we move on?
Nothing. I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you very much, Jairon. That's Jairon from Polyglot Global Translation Services. And again, the authors that you saw him translating, that he showed on the slideshow, they were authors that had all been on the Black Book Show platform as well. I think you showed Doreen Robinson, Chris Petard, Janet Palmer, all the authors that you mentioned, they had all come through the Black Book Shows and been actually on the virtual book tour previously. Right, let me go on to our next author now, who's a sponsor of the Black Book Show. It is Tamra Foley. So Tamra Foley from Education for All Now. So Tamra Foley, as well as being an author, she also offers consultation services for people who are interested in becoming an author and publishing. Garwell Publishing is her publishing arm. So Tamra Foley, if you would like to come on the Black Book Show virtual book tour again and tell us all about what you do, start by telling us where you're based, give a brief introduction about yourself, and then tell us whether you want to concentrate on the books or concentrate more on your publishing services that you offer.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say that I am so happy to hear a lot of these stories today, especially for the lady that talked about her mom. I'm also a caregiver, so it's always just something new information that sometimes we're not aware of. So thank you so much for sharing that, and for all the authors that have shared today. So I'm Tamra Foley. I am the author of the Cassie's Big Change series. I've also just publishing some journals on trauma healing for children and adults, and a poetry arm for trauma healing. So I have a publishing arm, which is the Garwell Publishing. And so today, and I'm also an educational consultant in the area of trauma, social emotional learning, behavioral interventions for children, and restorative practices and MTSS. So that is the Education for All Now part. For the Garwell, I just want to share with you some journals that we have published, one just recently for one of our clients, and I wanted to share that with you. It's a great journal for teens and tweens, and it covers poetry. There's a reflective piece. There are pieces that talk about dreams, and really a great short 45-day journal for children, teens and tweens. So that I'm talking about children in middle school and children in high school. And this is it. It's called The Young Achievers Guide. And the author is Carissa Young. And Carissa is an educator in Georgia. And so Carissa also has a business, the Young Educators Academy. So she does tutoring and is using this just as a resource, but also I just wanted to share just some of the wonderful color and different spaces that she has for the teens and tweens to think, to reflect, and to write down their thoughts, and to really get creative. And then she adds in here a weekly check-in. And the weekly check-in is for them to check in about how they're feeling, check in about what's going on, and for them to just check in about who they are, where are they meeting their goals. So just a really, really wonderful journal for teens and tweens. I also had published early last year, and it is called Exploring My Emotions. And my books cover social emotional learning and really talks about children's feelings. And this is a journal for elementary school age children. And again, it talks about dreams, it talks about the future. It allows them to really check in with their feelings, their emotions on a daily basis. Now, of course, we talk about a 45-day journal, but they don't have to do it in 45 days. They don't have to do it 45 days consecutively. There is a lot of content here and a lot of different ways, drawing, coloring, a lot of different ways for children to explore their emotions. And I think this is very important, especially now in today's society, when we're seeing so many children have to deal with so many things. We talked about COVID, and COVID is not over. It's still alive and well, and people are still getting sick, and people are still having some long-term effects. So it's just another avenue for these children to talk about that, and to really, it's not a COVID book, but it's really an avenue for them to talk about how they're feeling, how they're doing, and really who can they go to for support? Who can they go to ask, or do they have a trusted adult that they know who they are? Because many times what we hear and what we see is children just say, I don't have anyone to go to. I didn't know who I could go to. And so we want to make sure that we build that support team around them. And we make sure that they know exactly who it is. Can I go to Uncle Charlie? Can I go to Mrs. Tolbert? Can I go to, my pastor? Can I go to the local custodian at our school? Who do I have that relationship with that I can go to and say, I'm not feeling really good right now. I'm feeling depressed, or I'm not feeling happy, or things are going on in my life and I need to tell someone, so someone either could report it or either just support me. And I know that this is so important for children. And we all think it doesn't happen till they get to middle school. It is happening right now in elementary school. Children are suffering with abuse. They're suffering with all different forms of trauma in their life. And one of the things that they're suffering with that we don't really talk about a lot, and that's grief. Having someone that has recently died, their grandmother, their parent, their friend, their friend's parent who they may have been close to. But all of these are reasons why children need to really write, journal, color, and get involved with their emotions. So 2 great tools that has been published by Garwell Publishing: Exploring My Emotions, a 45-day journal for elementary school age children. And both of these are on Amazon. And also the Young Achievers Guide. And this is an inspirational journal to bring out children's inner being. So just 2 things that I wanted to share with you today, because I want you to share this with others that educators, people that run organizations, people that have agencies for behavioral health, or anything having to do with children. And I know that I've heard a lot of people on here today that are definitely working in that arena. So share this with the people that school districts. These are great resources, and they need to get in the hands of children. They need to get into the hands of those, because we don't always know when a child is hurting. Sometimes that's why we're so astonished when we hear about somebody committing suicide or somebody trying to harm themselves, because sometimes we don't know, because they're not always feeling comfortable to share it. But we want to create a safe environment so that they do feel safe enough to go to someone and say, I'm hurting, I need help, can you help me? And I think that is just so important in today's society. So thank you so much for listening. If you are looking for any of the services that I deliver, please feel free. You can reach me at educate me at educationforallnow.org. If you're looking at the school services, if you're looking at publishing, or even purchasing books, bulk orders, please feel free to reach out to me at publish@garwellpublishing.com, or you can go on either of those websites, Education for All Now, and it's a number 4 .org, and you can fill in the contact and I'll get right back with you, and at garwellpublishing.com, and you can fill out that contact form. Thank you so much. Thank you to the sponsors of this great platform. It's just wonderful to be able to hear, because every time I'm here, I learn something new. And so what a great opportunity for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's Tamra Foley, one of the sponsors of the Black Book Show. Her company, Education for All Now. So when everyone saw the flyer, that logo, Education for All Now, that was Dr. Tamra Foley. If that Dr. Tamra Foley, if you'd please like to put your details as well in the Zoom chat, in case anyone would like to contact you about your services or your books. And thanks again for the support on the Black Book Show, as well as the other sponsors. We've got Joseph from Jimmy Asher Foundation, Tolu A, Akinyemi, who you heard earlier, his company, the Roaring Lion of Newcastle, Bharti Dhir, you heard her earlier, spoke about her book called Worth, Nubian Nigist Books, Sister Lejet, who will be speaking later on the platform. And those people that have contributed as well since over the 3 years of the Black Book Show since its inception. In fact, a special shout out to Jimmy Asher Foundation and Nubian Nigist New Books, who have been a sponsor since the very inception of the Black Book Show. And in case you would like to be a sponsor of the Black Book Show, feel free to reach out to me, or indeed if you're author and you would like to promote a book. Now, I just want to be clear, to be a sponsor of the Black Book Show, you do not necessarily have to be an author. We've had people that have come on before, such as I think Black Bronze, who came on and they talked about they've got a website where people can put on their books, or they can put on different products if they want to, because obviously this is a books show. They was concentrating on books, but if people want to list products, they can list it on the website. And we've had different other organizations and companies, such as Dean Corby, who's got an event company that have promoted service. So if you're a Black-owned business and you would like to promote a service on the platform, you can. Please reach out to me. Or if you would like to talk about your book, there's the Black Books, the virtual book tour, which is this platform. I also have got the Black Books radio show and podcast. Most of the authors that have been on, in fact, I think all of the authors at this point have either been on the Black Books radio show and podcast, or they're about to go onto it. Tamara Foley, I did an interview with her. I don't think I've done a couple with her. Her last one was about SEL, and you can actually catch that. That's on the Black Book Show podcast. So if you go onto blackbookshows.com and the podcast interviews, you'll be able to, if you search back, there's the interview where I spoke to Dr. Tamara Foley about social emotional learning. Right, now let me go on to the next author. Well, I'm going to be going back anyway. Larry Ukali Johnson-Reid, you're back with us. So Larry, you've got 5 minutes left, so I can see you now. Hoping the connection's going to be okay. So Larry, if you would just like to, well, I don't say continue where you left off, but some people might not be exactly too sure about exactly where you left off. So I'll leave it up to you. But to mention, I would say start by mentioning the 2 books that you've got. But bearing in mind, you've only got 5 minutes as well left.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so there was talking about Letter to My Young Brothers, my new book. I was mentioning the elementary school, the skills that are involved in the book. The first one is setting graduation as a goal from day 1 of elementary school, and also moving up to chapter 2, it was about middle school, and you should learn all your grade level words and definitions, as well as sight words for junior high. You should learn to write a 3-paragraph essay with an introduction, and then also with the conclusion and the middle paragraph, and where you explain how you feel about whatever the question the teacher is asking you. And this book will go over how to brainstorm and how to make sure to get that kind of a 3-paragraph essay format correct. Also, you want to practice essays. And in the book, I actually have a practice essay about the Etruscans. The Etruscans were the Africans from North Africa who went up into Italy, and of course built the first Vatican. But they also are a significant group, and I would like to see what middle schoolers think about the Etruscans. So in using that 3-paragraph essay is key. And so again, it's already important for young people, especially young brothers, to learn math, science, while preparing to graduate from middle school. And that's a very important step. Chapter 3 in my book is about high school. And so high school students need to grow up and make friends. However, they need to focus on graduating, and they must be able to type, because that'll be something you're going to use the rest of your life. And you might even use it in university and college. And so it's very important for young people to learn how to work the keyboard, and attend every class in high school, complete all homework, avoid cutting classes. 100% attendance should be the goal, because that's the goal that's going to guarantee graduation. And for those who are thinking of maybe quitting, or who are wanting to drop out, maybe please place high school graduation graduation at the top of your list, because graduate while you're in school, you will not have a problem. Like when I'm an adult school teacher, and most of my students got to make breakfast for their kids and send them to school, and then go to work, and then after work, then go to school. And it's a very big traumatic episode for the adult school students, and they have to do all of that and overcome that to get their graduation together. So it's best for high school students to graduate while they're in the K-12 system of the school. And this book, again, called Letter to My Young Brother, has all the secrets and has a lot of the steps to success. And one of them for every grade student, whether you're in the first grade or 12th grade, is to study the words and definitions of your upcoming class beginning August 1st, so that when you go into class August 17th or August 20th or 30th, you have a new vocabulary and you're able to definitely understand the teacher. Now, to get this book, you can go to Barnes and Nobles, in Antioch anyway, but Barnes and Nobles has kind of a link all over the place. Or you could go to Railroad Bookstore if you're in Pittsburgh, California. And I'm going to be at an event on June 11th at 3000 Marina. And at that event, there'll be like maybe 20 authors of various types. And the event is going to be in Eventbrite, Bart. So get your ticket on Eventbrite. And I hope I'm using the 5 minutes correctly, but thank you very much for this opportunity, because this is a great platform, brother Arthur. And also to all of the other authors who participated with me. I'll be on YouTube on Tuesday night.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Larry Ukali Johnson read. I'm just going to share my screen now. So everyone should be able to see what's on my screen. So if you go onto the Black Book Show's website, that's www.blackbookshows.com, then you can scroll to, if you've got podcast interviews, which is here, and if you scroll down, here it says click this link to listen to other previous podcasts. You can actually listen to Larry speak a bit more in depth about his books. Larry's on episode 11. So if you scroll down to episode 11, and it was a great interview. You know, when we speak, I mean, he's coming back on the Black Book Show. That will be interviewed. So that interview will be coming out shortly as well on the radio show podcast. But we spoke. That was very in depth. It was about our conversation that we have. One of the best interviews I think we had. I've had some great interviews on the radio show and podcast, I must say. But check out that interview, the Black Book Show podcast 11, and you can hear Larry Ukali Johnson talking all about his books there. And just a reminder as well, because I did mention about if you would like to be a participant on the Black Book Show or sponsor the Black Book Show, but I didn't quite tell how to do it when I just spoke before Larry came on. So on the website, blackbookshows.com, there's a part which says contact us. And if you just fill in your name, email address, message, submit form, and then I will get back to you. Alternatively, you can email me directly. The email address is info@blackbookshows.com. That's info@blackbookshows.com. Or on WhatsApp. WhatsApp number is +44 7943 178 117. That is +44 7943 178 117, and name Makonnen, that is MAKONNEN, MAKONNEN, and I am the founder and organizer of the Black Book Show. Right, we're moving on to our next author. Our next author is Teneille Knight. So Teneille, if you would just like to come onto the platform and tell us, where you're based, give a brief introduction about yourself, and then, tell us all about the book that you've written.
Yes, sir. Hello, everyone. I am Teneille Knight, and I am originally from a small town in Louisiana in the United States. I currently reside in San Antonio, Texas, and I am the publisher publisher and author of my book called Push on Purpose, Living with Depression. I have already placed in the chat, if you look, all the links and my handles as far as my social media is concerned. So I am delighted and overwhelmed with joy to be on this show today. I want to thank you, author Makonnen, for allowing me to share my story with the world. I wrote my book in 2021, and today I'm going to take you guys on a bumpy, long journey called my life. Once I've shared my story, you will have a better idea on what to look for when someone is depressed, and how to support that person. For those who are currently going through depression, I pray that you will know when you need to seek help. I will be using many quotes and phrases from my book, as I want this to be as vivid as can be for those of you guys who are watching. In 2005, I was taken captive by depression. At this time, I was in college and should have been living my best life and acquiring all the knowledge I could for my future. However, depression knows no names, color of your skin, or your job title. It made me feel like I had been gripped by death. I could not control my thoughts, and I couldn't stop crying to save my life. Let me say that one more time. I couldn't control what I was thinking or my tears. This is very important to note, as this is what eventually alerted me that something was wrong, even though I couldn't give it a name. I just knew I had never cried this much. There are other signs that I would like to share. Let me quote the story by saying that I have always been someone who have kept myself up. When depression kicked in on me, I stopped caring about anything, including how I looked. I wouldn't comb my hair. My family had to do it. Eating was not on my to-do list, and I love to eat. Sleep deprivation had caused my body to become weak, as I would stay up all night walking the house. My prayer life went down the drain. I had stopped bathing. What I'm about to say next is from my personal experience dealing with depression. If you no longer have a desire to care for yourself, then you really don't care whether you live or not. At this point, I had entered my season of pain, and others need to be able to recognize them. These seasons came to steal, kill, and destroy me. These dark seasons of pain can mean having no peace, no joy, no hope. A season of no pain can have you pacing the floor like I was at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, searching for answers on how my life had become so chaotic. Your season of no pain will have you stressed out for reasons that are beyond your control. It will be so challenging for you to concentrate, as you may feel so overwhelmed with life. You may be in a corner rocking back and forth because you feel like you have lost total control of your life. The next season I want to talk about is a season of no joy. When it hits you, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. In the Bible, the word of God says that the joy of the Lord is our strength. So your strength will become depleted. And sometimes you may feel like there's a dark cloud over you. In this season, get ready to be acclimated to tears, because they will come like a mighty rushing flood. When your joy is gone, you have forgotten who your creator is. This next season, which is the last one I will discuss, is the season of no hope. Here are some practical examples of the symptoms of this season. It could include crying, sleeping too much, not eating or drinking, and pulling away from friends and family. You pull away from those you love because you feel as though they don't understand what you're going through. Your voice of reason is shattered because without hope, it is difficult to think yourself out of a challenging situation. This is one of the most dangerous seasons you could be in because this is where you start contemplating suicide. In your mind, your life doesn't matter anymore, and it would be better if you were no longer here. You forget about the ones around you who love you because at this point, you no longer care. It's not that you don't care for your loved ones. It is more about you caring for your life itself. I can remember asking God, why did you create me? I just could not understand how my life could be so jacked up. The more I thought about these seasons, I realized that I had lost my sense of purpose and my identity. It is detrimental not to know who you are, which is your identity, and why you are here, which is your purpose. I challenge you to take time to write out on a piece of paper who you are and why you are here on this earth. After you have written it out, speak it out loud over yourself every day, just like you would an affirmation. This is a powerful method to use as a precautionary measure when you are feeling yourself sinking into one of those 3 seasons I just discussed. I have more methods to share with you from my book. One of those being exercising for 30 minutes to an hour at least 3 times per week. I read in an article that exercise is one of the most underutilized antidepressants. That can simply mean walking, jogging, running, or, you don't have to be a track star or athlete in order to exercise. But this will require effort on your end, but it will pay off. Another avenue you can take is going to a chiropractor. When I was sick, I remember so clearly my mom faithfully taking me to my chiropractic visits, and we did see positive changes in me. So many people think that chiropractors focus only on the body, but that is half true. They focus on the mind and natural ways for you to heal. If your support team or a professional could get you to, if your support team or a professional could get to you before you enter any of these seasons I mentioned earlier, it would be for your best interest. Unfortunately, my support team didn't see how I had tapped out of reality past the point of no return until I reached the season of no hope. So they had a very difficult task when it came to dealing with me because the person I had become was no longer me. My episodes of dark seasons also taught me things that I wouldn't have known had I not gone through those lows. One of the lessons I learned was that sickness will draw those who really love you closer to you and not farther away. They are your assigned helpers, even if they are not part of your family. Do not ever take them for granted because they will stand by you when you don't have strength to stand on your own. I also learned how to pray to my God and get a prayer through. Like one of the chapters in my book says, there was a miracle happening during the battle. That is a powerful statement if you begin to ponder on what I just said. See, my battle of depression was a miracle because prayer was birthed out of my struggle. While I was sick, I didn't want anything to do with prayer. If I could be honest, I despised prayer because at the time it was difficult for me to talk to God because I thought He was responsible for my misery. As I look back on my circumstance now, I realized that it is a must that I carry, that it was a must that I carry the burden of depression on my back. It was assigned to me because God knew that I could handle it. My book, Pushed on Purpose, Living with Depression, would never exist for those who have read it or those who will read it. In chapter 6 of my book, the first line says, "The enemy wants us to lose, but God wants us to win." The seasons I had to endure were teaching me Romans 8:28, which says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." Just like God assigned a duty for me to write my book, he assigned the dark seasons so that I could have something worth writing about. With depression and suicide at an all-time high, my book is needed, not only for those who suffer from mental illness, but those who are caregivers of those who are mentally ill. Those who suffer from mental illness need to know that they are not by themselves, and the ones who take care of them need to understand what that person may be going through. So the last point I want to talk about is those who cared for me during my sickness. I saved the best for last because I wanted to stick. I have taken you through what mental illness could look like in your family, your friend, your child, by sharing my experiences. Please make sure that you are checking on your loved ones, whether it is your family, your child, or your friends. They may be going through something and you can't see it because they cry at night when everyone else is in bed. If you notice anything off with the person you love, sit down and talk with them. It is vital to let them do most of the talking, as this will allow you to gauge where their head is. When having a conversation with them, be sure that you are actively listening and paying attention to their body language. If you truly know the person you are talking with, you will be able to tell that they aren't themselves. In my book, I talk about how my mother was very instrumental when I was going through my seasons or episodes of depression. We
Okay,
could be over.
Teneille, you've got 2 minutes left.
Okay, and so she could tell something was wrong, and she would send someone from a different state to come get me. And because we live in different states. She's in Louisiana, I'm in Texas. And I just want people out there to know who suffer from mental illness and their families that you're not alone, and there is help out there for you. If you're on medication of any type, don't try to get off that medicine by yourself. You need a physician to, a physician that can wean you off the medicine. But I'm so excited to have this opportunity, and I'll show you guys the cover again. You can get my book at Amazon.com. Just type in "Pushed on Purpose, Living with Depression." I also have a prayer journal that I was prompted to create. And so I'm just thankful again to be able to have shared my testimony and a little bit about my book. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Teneille Knight. Please put the links as well in the Zoom chat. Right, now we're going to go on to our next author. Our next author is Monyetta Haynesworth. So Monyetta, if you would please unmute yourself and show your video so we can see you. Please start by telling us where you're based, give us a very brief introduction, and then tell us all about the book you've written.
Thank you, Makonnen. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be on your platform today. Thank you to all of the other authors that have gone before me and presented as well. And thank you for everyone that has respectfully tuned in from your different locations. My name is Dr. Monyetta Haynesworth, and I too currently reside here in San Antonio, Texas. I am what I call a bratterin. I'm an Army vet as well as a Army dependent. My father served in the Army, and my brother, he served in the Marines. So I come from a long line of vets. I am the oldest of three. I have 2 young adult daughters, and I have 5 grandsons. I wrote my book, Breaking Free, No More Chains Holding Me. It was a struggle to write the book because 1, I didn't want to write it. 2, I had not yet dealt with the things that I had gone through, which were domestic violence. I'm an overcomer. And I know a lot of people, depending on their respective situations, some people say they're overcomers and some people say they are survivors. I consider myself an overcomer. I work or try to work with women that have gone through domestic violence to help them on their journey towards healing and wholeness. The book that I wrote, it takes you on my journey of healing and forgiveness, because when you go through situations like that, sometimes you have to understand, why did you find yourself in the position in the first place? Me, like many others, sometimes it comes from a lack of love at home. Now, the crazy thing is, my parents are still married. They'll be married 52 years this coming July. But growing up, my father favored my younger sister. And for me, that created resentment. And then my resentment turned into rebellion. And when your resentment turns into rebellion, it causes you to have a lack of regard for authority. And then when you have a lack of regard for authority, then it has an effect on your relationships thereafter. And unfortunately for me, I found myself looking for love in relationships. And that's where it led for me meeting my children's father. I met him while I was attending school. I attended Clemson University on a full track and field scholarship, which I later abandoned because I looked at my teammates and everybody was like LMA, booed up. And I'm just like, well, God, where's mine? Why can't I have somebody that's here? And so he showed me the attention and the affection that I desired. And even though he did his best to talk me out of not leaving school, and we could have had a long distance relationship, I didn't listen to him. It's one of those things where when I get something in my head, I'm determined to do it no matter what. I'll suffer the consequences at a later date. So with that being said, I left school, moved from South Carolina to Tennessee where he was living. And from there, we had several disagreements, several fights, but I didn't think much of it. The way most women do when they find themselves in an abusive relationship, because we stop and we rationalize and we think, okay, well, it must be something that I said. It must have been something that I did. So let me change that and save the relationship while at the same time getting beat upside the head or having black eyes or going to the emergency room or having to call out of work sick, when technically it could have been resolved by, okay, this individual really does not love me whatsoever. But to stay, little do we know, we don't take the time to love ourselves enough to depart. And so from that, not getting the healing, not recognizing that I needed to be healed. And like I said, it took well over 10 plus years to finally realize that's what the issue was and where it stemmed from. After that, just went into one bad relationship after the next. Domestic violence, as we all know, is an issue that many people have no desire to talk about. You find it often where people sweep it under the rug, and the main reason it gets swept under the rug is because you have a lot of the actual officials where women go to seek help are also doing the same things at home, and they're getting a slap on the wrist. Most times when a woman finds herself in those, women find themselves in that situation, unfortunately, we stop and we rationalize, well, I've got this much time invested. We've got children together. I don't want to go to a shelter, because we look at the shelter as quote unquote a downgrade from the current living situation. And unfortunately, we don't even see the shelter as a safe haven, regardless of the quote unquote luxuries that we think we have at home with the individual. Then we start to think, well, who's going to love me? I've got children. And we start to rationalize about the next relationship when we actually need to consider and think about getting our healing, regardless of what that next relationship is or is supposed to be. Because when we stay in those relationships, unfortunately, it's not just us that's affected, it's everyone that's attached to us, especially when we have children. If you have family members like I did that would come to my rescue, and then you find yourself, okay, going back because you think, okay, well, we took a break, we talked about some things, we had some discussions, we laid out some plans. This wasn't going to happen again. If this happened, then you're going to go this direction, and then I'm going to go in that direction. Now you've got family members that are also unfortunately involved in the situation. And then you've got family members who just shake their head silently and don't tell you the hard truth that you sometimes need to hear. You need to leave that individual alone before you become a statistic. I am fortunate, I'm blessed that I was able to leave my situation. I had, like I said, we had many instances. My brother, bless his heart, he's younger than I am. He came to my rescue, didn't have to do it, but I'm grateful that he did. My father came to my rescue after working a 12-hour shift, drove from Virginia all the way to Knoxville, Tennessee at the time. So with that being said, I want to say that right now, unfortunately, domestic violence is not something that has gone away or will even go away in the near future, because there's no real way to get a handle on it because, again, of top officials. Right now, the state of Kentucky is leading in women experiencing domestic violence. It's at 45.3%. What I want to do is read the back of my book, and it reads, "In life, we make decisions on a daily basis, and sometimes we don't take into account the consequences attached to those decisions. When selecting a marital partner, it is imperative that you hear God's voice on who your kingdom spouse is. My choices almost proved fatal, not only for me, but my children also. This is my story on healing and wholeness." I'm going to read the preface really quick. No one gets married to get divorced. No one gets married with the intent of ever becoming a victim of domestic violence. I, like so many others, never imagined that I would endure any of the things that I did, let alone recover from any of it. I thought it was going to be my fate to be married happily ever after, if only I endured the abuse. I learned that it was never God's intent for me to experience less than his best, nor live beneath my privilege. But he allowed it so that I would know what his love did not feel like. He allowed me to experience the pain so that I could embrace the joy that he had waiting for me. It is my sincere desire that every woman who reads my story will take the time to put herself on the potter's wheel and allow healing and molding to take place, and seek our Heavenly Father for the spouse that has been prepared especially for you. There are too many women dying senselessly at the hands of their spouses, significant others, and/or former acquaintances. The Lord is not slack concerning his promises, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance.
Okay, Monyetta, I'm just letting you know you got 2 minutes left.
Thank you. I finally became weary inside my own hamster wheel and stopped fighting nearly 20 plus years later. I want you to realize your value and your worth so that you get out of your hamster wheel of life and enjoy the goodness you deserve. Your healing awaits. I will place my link for my book in the chat. I do pray and hope that if you find yourself in the situation, or someone that you know of in the situation, that you can assist them by getting the resources and convince them to get out, not to stay, because it never gets better. Leaving material things behind can be replaced, but lives cannot. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. That's Dr. Monyetta Haynesworth. Can you just, for people listening on Black Culture Radio as well, can you just say, the name of your book and where they can purchase it, just also for the people that are listening on radio?
The name of the book is Breaking Free, No More Chains Holding Me. And I don't know if you all can see it, but if you purchase your copy, you won't have this little strip here. This is my author's copy, but this is what it looks like.
Okay, and just spell your name as well for people listening.
It's first name is Monyetta. Last name is Haynesworth.
What I would just like to say is, thank all the authors that have come onto the Black Book Show this evening and have contributed. I'm looking forward to the next Black Book Show. So the next Black Book Show will be taking place. It's every other month. So those who are on my the email mailing list, they'll get a notification. If you're not already, please join. I'm going to put my email address now in the contact if anyone wants to contact me. Yeah, send me a message. If you want to contact me when that could be if you just want to reach out to me for whatever reason, if you want to join the mailing list, if you're author, you want to feature on the show, or if you've got anything you would like to ask, or you want to got any feedback about the show, feel free to contact me on the email address that I've put on in the Zoom chat. Right, thank you all for listening this evening or the afternoon, regardless of whatever the time zone that you're on. Auntie Jean is actually at African Liberation Day in Nottingham, so that's why I've been hosting on my own today. This is the Black Book Show in collaboration with Auntie Jean's African Culture Market. So Auntie Jean will be back next month, and she'll be co-hosting the show with me. And I look forward to, I won't be able to see you, but you will be able to see me next month. Please join the Facebook group, the Black Book Shows. I'm just going to conclude the Black Book Show now by saying thank you, everyone. And regardless of where you are, whether it's evening time, afternoon, etc., please enjoy the rest of your day and take care. So goodbye, everyone, and see you all soon.